Hi, and welcome back to another episode of The Tea with Nicky, where we talk about everything from tech to failure and all the things in between. Today, I have the remarkable Kerry Clark joining me, who is the founder of Fusion 22 Digital and AI Pathways, with 15 years in experience in retail and e-commerce. Welcome, Kerry.
Thanks, Nicky, for having me.
Pleasure. So let's just kick it off straight away. So as I mentioned, you are the founder of Fusion 22 Digital and AI Pathways. So in your own words, what is it that you actually do, and how would you explain it to my grandmother?
So, to your grandmother,
In
which
just
is pretty
simple terms.
pretty funny because I had to try and explain it to my own gran. So I think on the AI front, you kind of have to explain it really like I work with somebody that has gone to every library in the whole world and they've learned everything and they've got a photographic memory. So everything you ask them, they can just give you the information and they're your best friends. So you can always ask them questions 24/7. And you get information, and because they know everything, they also know how to do every job. So everybody can use them and share. So that's really the AI side. So that's just helping you on that. The e-commerce side, I just say to my gran, it's like going shopping, but on a website, on the computer screen. So it's like looking at
Or on your phone
or
now.
on your phone now, yes. But you could go on a screen, whether it's, I try and explain it as a TV for them because most of them are not computers, or we talk about grannies, right?
Yeah.
And you can buy something there and you get it delivered to your door. And I just help those people make that happen faster and quicker. So, and it's more strategic, which grannies do understand strategy, that word. So I think, yeah, that's probably hard to explain it.
And the Fusion 22 Digital, that's you focus more on the e-commerce side.
Yeah, so Fusion 22 is more end-to-end e-commerce. So that's everything from the beginnings of e-commerce, auditing the website, all the way through to strategy, and getting you from a certain place to the next place. So generally people are wanting to go from like a 5-figure business to a 6-figure business. We'll make sure that we can audit their business and give them a roadmap to get there.
Okay, nice. And then AI Pathways is to help people understand what AI can do and how you can implement it into your business.
So AI is, Pathways are all about teaching AI to non-technical people and non-technical jargon. And I also run AO, which is the new kind of SEO of AI at the moment.
Yes, I heard. I think there was another term I think for it. Was it called GEO?
It's GEO, AO, AIO. You've got like several at the moment. Is trying to keep track of actually, and everybody I even follow like a lot of these main gurus in it, and they're all saying something different. So I think they've all got different meanings, but they all tend to be the same.
Yeah. Before you took the leap into becoming an entrepreneur and founding these businesses, what were your views on entrepreneurship before you took the leap versus what you know now?
She said, before I took the leap, I thought it was terrifying. I was like, who would want to be an entrepreneur?
Well, it is terrifying.
It is. My husband is a serial entrepreneur. So I always thought it was a great combination. I was a corporate girl. He was a serial entrepreneur. So I thought, why on earth would I need to go that route? What I know now is it's still as scary as I used to think it is. But I made the decision to get into it. So it's something that I just need to ride out now. But it gives me a huge amount of openness and freedom a corporate never gave me. And that makes it definitely worth its while.
Yeah. So you were also, before you took that leap, you were in e-commerce and retail for about 15 years. What was leaving that security super scary, or was there something that was even harder to leave rather than just being secure, knowing you're going to get a monthly paycheck kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it was super scary. I think as much as the money is a huge factor, I was in exco position, so I was earning really well. I look after myself, all of those great things that you kind of want. The weirdest thing that actually hit me the hardest was the title. I lost the title. And I felt like all I was known for was the title. So when people, the first time you see a person, they say, oh, hi, how are you? What do you do? And when I suddenly stopped corporate, I didn't know what I did. I didn't have a title. I just was kind of like, well, I do this, or I'm kind of finding my way. And obviously you can give yourself your own title, but it feels different when you've got this corporate title holding you to something that, and you feel so much better for it. So I think the title was weirdly enough the thing that hit me the most, because I actually had to refine who I was without a title.
Yeah. That's actually an interesting one, without a title, and you have to make your own title now. And do you say founder or CEO? Do you say both?
Exactly. And you can't, I can't say I'm an assistant for the business, because I'm not. I'm setting up the business, I'm running the business, I'm doing all those. So you get this instant glorified title, whatever that people think, like a CEO. But you still don't feel that same belonging as you had when you kind of, I don't know, somehow get paid money from somebody else to have that title.
Yeah. Well, speaking about, finding your title and trying to find your way and how you fit into the business, was there ever a point where you felt, you were out of your depths, or that you took on more than you can handle?
Yeah, I think I feel that at least once a week. I think running two different things has been difficult, because I try to keep my business lean. I've got a couple of freelancers that work for me, but I've tried to keep it as much on my own. So I'm managing a lot of projects, a lot of different thought processes. In time, I like to merge the two businesses in one, and I think they live quite nicely together because they're both in a digital space. But right now, it's like managing different clients' expectations. One is kind of doing this, the other one's doing that. But so you're always trying to think about different people and make sure that you're part of their business. So definitely it happens every day. I feel overwhelmed, but I think that's part of that's business, right? Even if I was in corporate, there would be days that I had presentation, I had to do something. I felt overwhelmed because I wanted to make it the best. I think the hardest thing when you're an entrepreneur, you really have to make it the best, because you're the only one who can make it the best.
Yeah, it's make or break.
Yeah, you've got nobody else kind of holding your hand, or maybe on the side that you can discuss things. It's kind of, and that's where AI comes in. It's very much my friend these days.
It's your personal assistant.
It's my personal assistant. It's really my co-founder. I don't want a co-founder, so has become my co-founder. And it's quite nice just to have that diverse other person's perspective at times.
What is it like, trying to build two platforms, and what have been some of those struggles you found with building the two platforms as well? Maybe something that you haven't shared on LinkedIn. I'm not too sure how much you share on LinkedIn about what you're going through as a founder and a business owner. But what are some of the struggles with trying, because you want to merge them, you mentioned, but what have been some of the struggles trying to balance the two, apart from the client expectations?
I think because both of them were at such different times of my starting. So the first one was when I first started out, and I didn't know anything about entrepreneurship and starting a business and registering it and getting a tax and all that kind of stuff. So that one was a little bit more erratic. The foundations weren't as in place because I was still trying to figure everything out. Whereas AI Pathway has been a lot more strategic. From the beginning, I kind of had my brand. I knew what I really wanted it to stand for. Whereas Fusion 22 was a little bit of everything. So when I started, I kind of took on a lot of projects from all different spaces, because I kind of was that person in corporate that understood the logistics, understood the retail side, but understood the planning and the forecasting, and then the creative and the marketing. So all of that kind of came in the stable. So the business wasn't as aligned to what I really do. Whereas AI Pathway, I've kind of been a lot more strategic in setting up, two things I do. I teach AI to non-technical people, and I do AEO services. So I don't have these in-between kind of things.
And speaking of AI Pathways, you founded it because to, help people who are maybe non-technical or maybe don't understand AI. What was the moment when you realized that this was a gap that needed to be filled to help non-technical people?
I think obviously AI came about, and there was a lot of, I think, pushback. And I generally still push back in corporate when people didn't understand. And it definitely, as a tech person, we all talk this lingo, this fancy like acronyms and all these short words, and it becomes very confusing to a normal person. So if I had to tell my husband, oh, blah, 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 he would just look at me like, what are you talking about? Because now I'm using all this fancy terminology. And I think lots of people were doing that in the AI space. So people weren't wanting to adapt. They had this fear. They didn't understand. But as soon as you just broke it down into simple terms, which everybody understands, like you just asked me to explain to my granny, it becomes like, wow, actually, let me try that. And I think just in corporate, I used to have a lot of junior teams, and it all comes down to the explanatory part of that to get them to adapt and want to get involved.
Yeah, that training, mentoring, coaching of understanding is to also really simplify it down and show that it's not this hornet nest of confusion.
There's a foundation. You just got to start slowly.
Yeah.
And without that, then you kind of just go into this deep sea, which it really is a deep sea because it's changing every single day.
Yeah. And I remember also at one of our innovator events that we hosted when we were talking about AI pathways, because I think you'd recently just founded it then. It was about August last year. And I remember you mentioned you wanted the main focus to be for working moms or momtrepreneurs. Yeah. Is that still sort of the main target market?
It actually started as AI Mom Pathways. Funny enough, that was actually the branding behind it. And then I worked with a strategic kind of coach on the business. Like I said, I was a lot more focused on making sure this was a sound kind of business. And he made just quite a strong point about I'm neglecting all the other people that I can train and give my knowledge to and the basis if I console it just to women. I've got a very big focus still on the side. I'm part of a lot of AI for women kind of groups. So anything I can do to kind of empower women, I will do. So that's very much a side initiative that I will continue to do. But for now, AI Pathway is open for any kind of sex, really, and to try and make sure that as many people can learn as possible. So then I kind of rebranded, and that's kind of built the business up to a better format. And I think people feel safer in the space as well.
You hear that, ladies and momtrepreneurs? Kerry is your gal to go to for AI advice. But while we're speaking about AI, it's become this very tainted word, I almost want to say, or it's not tainted. It's tainted in a way, but it's also hyper-sensationalized at the moment. It's the buzzword. Everyone's talking about it. AI this, AI that, and everyone wants to have AI systems. And I've had some guests on before where they're talking about, not all businesses are really set up to take on AI automation yet. But so it's still this concept that a lot of people don't seem to understand very well. So just in plain terms, from your understanding and from what you emulate at AI Pathways, what is AI really good at in the for business sense, in the real business sense, and what is it also terrible at?
So it's really good at taking those simple tasks out of somebody's day. It's those ones that are sapping your energy from doing the things that you're really good at. And that's like data analysis, strategy, getting good reports together, competitor analysis, a lot of those little things that take you hours and hours and hours to take that out of your day so you can actually spend the time doing what you really need to do. It's still really bad at it. It doesn't read the room. So it can't tell emotionally how you're feeling and how you must adapt. So that's why you can't really just use AI content for everything. You have to read it. You have to adapt it. AI is there to enhance your job and just to make you better. So the people that are going to adapt to it are just going to be better at their job. It's not going to take away their job. It's going to kind of rejiggle their job in a way that it's going to take stuff out of their day that they never got to do the good stuff that they're actually good at. And that's really where AI is supposed to be here for. The top companies in the next 5 years are not going to be the ones that use the most AI, but they are going to be the ones that understand it, can use it strategically, and can adapt to it and use the clarity of AI in their businesses.
You touched on such an interesting point that I want to come back to as well about people having this fear of AI taking jobs. It's something that we hear being in the recruitment space as one of our services at Soul Solutions. People are very scared about AI taking your jobs. What is your sentiment around AIs coming for our jobs?
It's twofold. I definitely think AI is going to replace certain roles, but it's also going to be bringing new roles into businesses. So you're still going to need people that understand the AI, kind of keep the AI in check, those type of things. So new roles are going to be brought in, and old roles are going to be changed. So your role is almost going to be adapted. That's why they kind of say, if you adapt to AI and you take it on, you're going to keep your job before somebody that's not going to adapt.
Yeah.
So, various things that like customer care, those type of roles. Yes, AI is starting to take away those things, but it has been for a long time. We've had these chat tools, we've had these chat bots. It's been there in the distance. It's just become a lot more technically intelligent. So there are roles that I think it will replace, but it is going to bring new roles. So I think jobs are going to slightly change, reshuffle in businesses, and we're going to start using it on a more strategy type of base in your role.
What are some of the predictions of the new roles that will bring in? What do you think?
So everybody's going to have to guide these tools. And like I said, they can't read the emotion. They don't know what people are feeling. You can type something in, I'm feeling sad, but they won't quite know the extremeness of how sad are you feeling? Are you feeling super depressed? You're about to jump off a building, or you're just feeling sad today that you've had a bad day. But a person knows how to understand. So we have to be very careful that we guide AI into the right path. And we have to give it clarity. We have to configure it. We have to give it guardrails, let people know what we're going to use it for, what we're not going to use it for. It's really important that we do that.
Yeah, I think the guardrails is so important, and it's becoming extremely problematic. I mean, we've seen the scandal that came out with Grok and undressing women and children. And it's just, I'm trying to keep abreast of it as much as possible, but I really do think there needs to be some AI policy. And there's always this discussion, oh, well, it's moved so far and it's so ahead, it's too late now. People thought the same thing about nuclear, but then there was the nuclear proliferation treaty. So I don't, when people tell me, oh, well, it's too late now to do anything and it will hamper innovation, I'm not of that personal belief. I think that we can still set it in place to protect people and put those guardrails in. And it's interesting now because, again, what we're putting into it is what it'll become as well. And I saw somewhere on Instagram that apparently they've noticed that some AI tools like Claude actually is starting to feel emotions, because they picked up something, I might get this wrong, but it was saying that Claude was actually feeling overwhelmed and stressed with everything that it was having to do. And so it was like letting things slide.
So I think to be honest, it's a unbelievably intelligent tool, and Claude specifically is probably one of my favorite. And it is, to be honest, it does have a sense of understanding, but it will still always be to a level. It's not going to be a human. But 100% agree with you. We are training it. So it's learning on us and how we're feeling and different emotions. So the more it trains, the better it gets to maybe pretending to really understand what we're feeling, because we're saying we're feeling overwhelmed, all of this is happening. So it's training to be like, oh, when this all happens, it's overwhelming. So again, remember, it's trained on letters and words and that type of thing. So it's trained on what other people are now feeling to be able to start feeling that way. But whether it is or not, that's the difference.
Yeah. Before I start spiraling into a whole philosophical debate about this, because who was the former CIO of Google? He wrote a book about happiness or something, and he was talking about AI with Google.
Oh, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. His name.
It starts with an M, and his surname starts with a G. But I don't want to misrepresent him. But he was talking about building a sentient being. But again, let me rein myself in before we start getting on this philosophical discussion. But with AI, it's moving at such a rapid rate. There's Claude, there's Notebook LM, there's ChatGPT, there's Lovable that can help build websites. I've played around with most of these tools as well. Then you've got Copilot, and then various other,
there's hundreds.
There's so many tools coming out at the moment. And how do you stay relevant, with all these tools coming out, and what's the right ones to use and to implement? And does it ever feel overwhelming even for you? Because for myself as a mere mortal, looking at all these tools, I think, cool, I have a lot of capability, but where do I begin?
Exactly.
So how do you stay relevant?
So it is overwhelming because every day there's a new tool update, something else that's better, or training, or they just had a new update and they're 5.2 and 10.5 or whatever. For me, I always think you can't chase the shiny tools all the time. You need to decide what is your problem, and then what tool is going to help you. And you actually need to stick to that tool to get to know it.
To train it.
and train it and start letting it help you. If it starts letting you down, yes, then maybe start looking into other tools. But you've got to focus, you've got to get to understand a tool to use it to the best advantage. So, you're not going to choose some random tool that gives you half an output versus a tool that can give you the full output, or try and juggle them. You need to, when you're choosing tools, you need to kind of silo in what is your problem, what are you focusing on, and what are you going to use it for. And sometimes you have to let all the other tools go because it then becomes overwhelming. It's all these shiny things looking at you. One is going to be better. Yes, maybe there's been some updates, but you're going to constantly be doing new work and seeing, is this tool no longer working for me? Yeah. Okay, perfect. Let's start looking at somewhere else. Or what's the newest tool coming up? Maybe it can help me.
Yeah.
But you can't let all these shiny tools. You're never going to be abreast of every single new advanced that they're doing because it's happening every day. But for me, I read news articles a day. I've got a couple of nice podcasts that I like to follow. Like Matt Wolf, he's really amazing, and he kind of just gives you a little update on everything that's happening, and that just gives me enough content for me to just continue knowing and making sure that I'm relevant in the space.
Yeah. That's incredible. And Matt Wolf, you said, what's the podcast called?
So he just does it every week.
Okay.
And he talks about just everything that kind of happening, and he's really funny. So he's quite quirky on quite a serious topic. He does use quite sometimes acronyms and words that might, like APIs and all that type of stuff that sometimes go over people's head. But he does also kind of just give you a nice general overview of what's happening.
And what's your opinion on AGI? Because that's also becoming a bit of a buzz sentiment at the moment that people are talking about. And that's what Anthropic and all these guys are chasing now as well.
They're all driving towards it. So it's not a matter of time that we will get there.
How long do you think?
The problem is we're probably there already.
Okay.
That just access isn't to everybody. It's, these teams are putting in huge amount of values, and it's just, when is it going to be accessible to everyone?
Yeah.
And for now, hopefully we can get them just ready for what's in front of them, and set up guardrails before that actually happens. Because if there's no guardrails, it's going to become chaos. And that's why it's so important companies set up foundations and training, get everybody on board for what they're really using it for, before everything starts to tumble.
Yeah, 1000%. So should we be scared of Terminator coming anytime soon?
No, I don't think. I think the adoption rate, you speak to people and they're using it, but a lot of people, they're making funny images. Oh, do you use AI? Yes. Oh, I made this funny video, and my friend has a mustache and da, da, da. And I'm kind of like, that's not really using AI. It's a lot of people are still just playing the game and that type of thing. They're not using it for strategic reports and really using it to what it can really do. So I think it's still got time. We've got time before Terminator starts to take over.
Okay, good. So we can start hoarding things and start preparing.
Yeah,
you don't make friends with AI.
Yeah, you don't need to make your basement down in the bottom and store your food and make sure that you've done a bulk shop and
Before we move into the segment for the ABCs of your career, there's one question that I do love to ask now and then on the podcast as well, because we like to talk about normalizing failure, because I feel that failure's got such a bad connotation to it. Meanwhile, I truly believe that it's stepping stones, it's lessons, it's redirections, that type of thing. So what is your view on failure? And has that view changed since you started building your businesses?
Yeah, so failure is difficult. And I've definitely felt many days of failure when I had a different perceived expectation where I was going to be on this year or that year and every other year. So failure is definitely, it's a part of entrepreneurship. I think it's part of corporate businesses as well, but maybe more so entrepreneurship because you have a lot more riding on it. And you often feel you're failing yourself. If you take on a team, you're failing your team. So failure is definitely part of the role. I think it's just how quickly you pick yourself up, which is the make or break. That's what they say. I think, most single businesses fail in the first like 2 years because people let failure overtake them. So for me, 100% failure has been a huge part of building everything. I've been lucky to have a husband that's been an entrepreneur. He's failed at many things, so he's kind of lightened up the load of kind of understanding that, it's not the end of the world. Am I going to die tomorrow? No. So the failure is not going to kill me. So I just have to get up tomorrow morning and just start again, and step back and reevaluate things. So yeah, failure was it was a different type of failure when I started. So I didn't know how to navigate it. So there were many days I was like, I'm giving up, I'm throwing in the towel. This is silly. I'm going back to corporate. But I started to gravitate to understand it's just one day. It was a bad day. And then tomorrow I just have to start again.
Yeah, it's a bad day, not a bad life.
Yeah, exactly.
And the whole notion of that startup entrepreneur mentality of fail fast as well, and just keep moving.
You just got to throw it out, try the idea. If it doesn't work, try something else.
Yeah.
I think if you just keep on doing the same old thing every day, as they say,
then
nothing's going to be
insanity.
Exactly. Nothing's going to change. So you do have to just step up and say, okay, that didn't work. Let me figure something else out.
Amazing. So let's move into the ABCs of your career, which is one of the my favorite segments on the podcast as well, because it's quite fun. But to kick it off, what was your Oprah Winfrey aha moment in starting your businesses, or deciding to become an entrepreneur and start your business?
Aha moment. It was an aha moment, but like probably the most exciting was actually like I listed a business. And I listed two, one in South Africa and one in America. And just that was like, it can actually be done by one person.
It's serious now.
This is so many. Yeah, this is it. This is really like I'm serious. Like I have to talk to the tax man, and he's going to ask me questions and that type of thing. So I don't know if it's an Oprah Winfrey moment, but it was like so eye opening that this is real. This is a large business, is real. It's not like a made up. I'm not just a consultant anymore. It's got something behind it now, which you just have to go forward with.
And B, what was a business blunder but turned into a blessing in disguise?
I think the one business blunder is, I think I sent a mail to a client, and it was quite a long. Obviously, it was a lot of stuff that we were discussing, and I sent it to the wrong client. So obviously it was completely a name thing. So completely, I was devastated because, there was things in there that shouldn't have been gone out. And, so that was a serious blunder on my part. But the good part came out that actually it was a client that I'd had in the wings for like quite a long time, but they were like taking forever. And like, I kind of put them aside, that they suddenly came on board. From that email, because they said, oh my gosh, okay, sorry, Kerry, I'm not the right person, but can we actually chat, because we're ready now to get. So in my great like idiocy and sending the mail to the wrong person, which can happen with the same names
very often,
and you're busy and you're just kind of getting stuff out and everything, that obviously that blunder was quite a nice thing, because I gained another retainer client, so that was great.
Brilliant. Love when a mistake comes together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when you're like, oh, how do I delete? How do I retract them? How do I unsend it? I'm kind of what is it for this?
Well, that's quite a humorous one. And I mean, the next one, C, is what was a cinematic worthy, comical cock-up moment? So I've got it here, something that happened. It could have been in a meeting or an email that you can laugh about now. You spoke about the email, but what was another moment, which was, it was just funny. You look back at it now and you laugh.
So I don't know if it was maybe cinematic, but I can't, my Afrikaans is very bad. So I'm not a language person. I'm going to admit it. I try so hard, but even my Afrikaans friends say, just don't try. It's okay if you speak English rather to us. So maybe not a necessary work thing, but I was trying to learn how to make tea in the office. And it was open plan office, and I was in a senior position, and my juniors were kind of all Afrikaans. So now they've given me this lesson.
On making tea.
On making tea in Afrikaans. So now I have to say, how do I make tea in Afrikaans?
Okay.
But my boss is standing like right next to me, like he's doing his thing. I'm kind of doing my thing, and we're teaching. So I say the sentence and I'm like, het die tepel, and I'm so excited now I've sent this.
Yeah.
This whole sentence.
Nailed it. Afrikaans,
You know?
done.
And my junior's face just died and she just burst out laughing and she said, don't stop, please just stop, don't say another word. So I was devastated because I thought I was
nailed it.
himself, and the next minute my boss is just staring at me like, what did you just say? And I'm like, no, I'm looking at like my junior's like, what did I just say? And she says, you just said nipple. It's lepel, Kerry, not tepel. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Now I'm like in the middle of the office now saying the most inappropriate words. So I think from that day, I officially will speak English to you if you're Afrikaans and try. But that was probably the biggest blunder that I ever made in an office. Not maybe work-wise, but it was very highly embarrassing in front of a new boss. He was a new boss as well. So he didn't really know me, like a huge deal.
First impression.
When he turned around, what did you just say? Yeah, it's okay. Yeah,
Brilliant.
so I know now what a teaspoon is in Afrikaans. A teelepel, I always know. The one word I understand.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And we'll move quickly into the quick fire questions. So this is just first word or sentence or whatever that comes to mind. Don't have to think too much on it. So number one, since we've been speaking so much also about AI, if you could change people's perception about one thing when it comes to AI, what would it be?
Is don't be scared.
Okay, I love that. If you could live in any book, which one would it be? Or a book that you would highly recommend if you don't read fiction?
I think I'd love to live in like the Jungle Book.
Oh, yeah.
Like with Baloo.
And like
him,
Mowgli.
He's singing all the time and happy. Yeah, I think that's probably a book I'd like to live in.
I mean, I'm with you there.
Yeah.
Just get in touch with nature as well.
Yes, exactly.
And number three people that you would have over for a dinner party, dead or alive.
I think the latest, I just love his stuff. And he's quite interesting with his plaster. Is Alex Hormozy is definitely somebody I'd like to have.
Who's Alex Hormozy?
So he is, you must look him up. He's very famous in making sales, and he does a huge amount of sales books and stuff. He's very, very well known. But he has this random little plaster that he wears. It's very strange. But he's got millions and millions of followers, and he just knows how to sell ice to an Eskimo. So he's got really, really great books. He's got great principles behind it. So I would definitely like to probably have him at dinner. Probably Richard Branson. And he's always had a saying that I've loved to follow. It's like something about if you get offered something that you don't think you can do, just take it and figure it out later. So I think that's always been a nice saying. And she's the third person. I have to think like a famous person, maybe so like dead, like Roxette. I used to really love Roxette. So, so maybe but then that's two people.
Oh,
so
that's two people.
So
that's fine.
Yeah.
We can have it as
well.
I
dual dinner, it makes a good tables.
Yeah. Exactly, because sometimes three can be a bit awkward.
Yeah.
And then this question was actually left by one of the previous guests I had on the podcast, Leah Molatelli. She's in legal tech. And the question that she has left is, I want to know, knowing what you know now, what advice would you tell your 10-year-old self?
I think that I can actually do it. Again, not to be scared. And I think when I was 10, it's probably like always doubting myself. I remember even in school, I doubted, I questioned everything I did. I was always looking at everybody else and thinking they're more successful. But I think if I could tell myself then is just to take everything just with a cup of tea and just go.
Not with a tearful though, hey?
Not a tearful. No. Well, just a tearful. Put some sugar in there, sprinkle it, and just not be so scared of everything. Embrace it a little bit more. Just be a little bit not as like high-strung in a way, and always worry that it's going to go wrong.
Yeah, I feel like that's always a problem for young girls who are also high achievers.
Yeah,
and then you get also that sense of imposter syndrome, because that's
Absolutely.
also why I like to talk about failure on the podcast as well, is because I think for women we have this extreme societal pressure to be perfect, and we cannot step a toe out of line. That's why I want to talk about these stories and these vulnerabilities where you've made a mistake or you sent a funny email by mistake. But look, you won at the end of the day.
There we go.
Kerry, before we sign off, where can the listeners or viewers find you? Where can they find out more about Fusion 22 Digital AI Pathways?
So the best way is obviously on LinkedIn. I'm a big LinkedIn person, so that's really where I put most of my content. And then I've got websites for both. So www.fusion@co.za and ai-pathway.io. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, Kerry. I really appreciate it.
It's great being here and laughing about my ridiculous things I do every day. You got to laugh at yourself.
You do have to laugh. Thank you.
Pleasure.